The man in the navy cap looked out of place. Not because of his clothes, a simple polo, faded jeans, and boots still dusty from travel, but because of how still he was. He sat alone in a booth at Miller's Steakhouse, watching the Friday chaos unfold around him. No one that knew his name was Thomas Reed, CEO of the very chain he was sitting in. To them, he was just another quiet drifter looking for a cheap meal. He'd come to see the truth, to taste the food, hear the voices, and feel the air his employees breathed every night. And what he found was rot. It began when the manager laughed loud enough for everyone to hear. "Hey, buddy, you sure you can afford that steak?" The room chuckled. He didn't. The diner smelled of burnt coffee and quiet disappointment. Grease clung to the air like regret. A tired jukebox hummed some forgotten country song, its melody wobbling under the weight of years. It was 8:47 p.m., peak dinner hour, but no one looked alive. The kitchen door kept swinging open, releasing bursts of heat and shouting. Behind it, a girl's voice trembled. "I'm sorry, Mr. Miller. I'll fix it." Thomas looked up. At the counter stood Gary Miller, the manager, heavy-set, sharp smile, shirt half-tucked, voice like gravel, an ego. He leaned on the counter, mocking the young waitress who dropped a tray. "Sorry doesn't pay for broken plates. Sweetheart," he barked. "You spill one more thing, and I'm docking your pay again." She froze, hands still shaking, face flush red. Her name tag read Ellie. Early 20s. Tired eyes that didn't belong on a face that young. Thomas watched, silent. He wasn't here to reveal himself. Not yet. He needed to understand the sickness. Gary turned, spotted Thomas still staring. "You got a problem, old-timer." Thomas smiled faintly. "Just waiting for my order." Gary snorted. "Well, you'll wait longer. We're short-staffed thanks to people who can't do their jobs." He said it loud enough for Ellie to hear. No one intervened. The cooks kept their heads down. The other servers pretended to clean the menus. Because, hey, silence was safer than decency. The waitress brought his drink, a chipped glass of water, lukewarm. She didn't meet his eyes. "Your steak will be right out, sir," she said softly, voice trembling like paper in the wind. "Thank you," Thomas replied. Something about her gentleness lingered. She moved carefully, not gracefully, but cautiously, as if the floor might punish her for being human. At the next booth, a group of men in suits laughed, bragging about tips they didn't give. One of them slapped Ellie's tray as she passed. The drinks wobbled. One spilled down her wrist. The laughter rose again. Gary appeared instantly, not to stop them, but to scold her. "God, Ellie, you just can't keep it together, can you?" Her eyes shimmered. He hit the tray. "Oh, now you're blaming customers," he sneered. "You're lucky I don't write you up again." The room pretended not to see. Thomas leaned back, jaw tightening. He'd built this brand to give people jobs, not to break them. But somewhere between quarterly profits and regional managers, humanity had gone missing. His steak arrived 15 minutes later, dry, cold, and wrong. The knife barely cut through. He didn't complain. He simply observed. Every crack in the ceiling, every bitter tone, every empty smile. In the corner, an older woman in a faded uniform moved with quiet grace. She wasn't part of the noise, just steady, kind, invisible. Her name tag read Martha. "Need anything else, hun?" she asked, placing napkins on his table. He met her eyes, tired but good. "No, you're the only one who's asked." She gave a small smile. "Some of us still care, even if the boss doesn't." Her words lingered like a prayer. Gary barked orders again. Ellie dropped another glass. Someone in the kitchen cursed. The lights flickered. And in the chaos, Thomas saw the truth beneath the noise. This wasn't a bad night. It was a broken system. He took a slow sip of water and whispered to himself, "Sometimes you have to sit in the dark to see what's missing." As he looked up, Ellie approached again, pale, shaking, holding a slip of paper. "Your check, sir," she said softly, sliding it toward him. Her fingers brushed his, briefly, and then a whisper, almost too faint to hear. "Please don't tell anyone I gave you this." Then she walked away, head down. Thomas looked at the paper. It wasn't the check. It was a note. The paper trembled slightly in Thomas's hands. Not because he was afraid, but because of what fear felt like in another person's handwriting. The note was scrawled in hurried ink. Please help. He's not letting us leave. Says we owe him for training costs. We're scared to quit. Don't say I wrote this. E. For a moment, Thomas didn't breathe. He read it again, slower this time. The words burned hotter with each line. He'd heard rumors of exploited training fee schemes, illegal deductions to trap low-wage workers. But this was in his own restaurant. He looked up. Gary stood near the kitchen window, laughing with one of the cooks, oblivious. Ellie was scrubbing the counter in silence, her shoulders rigid with exhaustion. Thomas folded the note carefully, slid it beneath his napkin. He knew better than to confront too soon. Power, when wielded right, didn't shout. It waited. The night pressed on. The crowd thinned. The fluorescent hum replaced the noise of laughter and plates. Ellie's hands shook as she poured a refill for the last table. Martha brushed past her gently. Honey, you need to rest. I can't, Ellie whispered. He said if I don't finish cleaning, he'll take tomorrow's shift away. Martha's eyes dimmed. That man's soul must be on clearance, she muttered. Thomas heard it all. He took out his phone, typed a single message draft, but didn't send it yet. The text read, Confirm internal audit. Region 4. Tonight. Then he slipped the phone back into his pocket. Hey, old man, Gary's voice cut through the silence. You've been sitting there all night. You gonna pay or what? Thomas met his gaze calmly. Just waiting for my receipt. You got it already, Gary snapped. Don't stall. We don't like squatters. Thomas reached for his wallet, counted out bills, enough for the meal and a large tip. But when he slid the cash across, Gary noticed a corner of the folded note peeking out from beneath the napkin. He snatched it up before Thomas could react. What's this? Gary's face twisted. You writing me love letters, old man. He unfolded the note. Read it. His grin faltered, then hardened. Ellie froze mid-step. Martha turned from the counter. Who gave you this? Gary barked. Who? Thomas didn't answer. He just looked at him, eyes steady, unreadable. Gary's voice rose. You think you can come in here and start trouble? You some kind of union rat. The room held its breath. Ellie's lip trembled. Please, Mr. Miller. Quiet. Gary thundered. I knew it was you. Always whining, always messing things up. You just cost yourself your job. He pointed toward the door. Get out. Ellie's eyes filled. I need this job, so I didn't mean. Out! The word echoed. Martha stepped forward, voice firm but calm. Gary, that's enough. She's a kid. Gary turned on her, face flush red. You want to join her? Don't test me, Martha. You've got one foot in the grave and the other on my nerves. A silence heavier than the smell of grease filled the diner. Thomas's voice cut through it, quiet but carrying weight. You talk to your staff like that often. Gary turned, scowling. What's it to you? Just curious, Thomas said, standing up slowly. You ever think about what happens when people finally stop being afraid of you? Gary snorted. What's that supposed to mean? Thomas met his eyes. You'll find out. Ellie was crying now, quietly, at the door. Martha placed an arm around her. Don't cry, baby. He's not worth your tears. Gary barked. You two are done here. I'll call security if you're not gone in 10 seconds. Thomas spoke again, still calm, still measured. No need for security. I'll go with them. Gary laughed. Oh, how noble. You're gonna save the damsel in distress, huh? Thomas put a few more bills on the counter, just covering their pay for tonight. Gary slapped the money away. Get out of my restaurant. Thomas's gaze hardened. No anger, just a quiet, final kind of disappointment. He turned to Ellie and Martha. Come on. They hesitated, then followed him toward the exit. As they stepped outside, the cold night air hit like freedom. Ellie hugged herself, shivering. I shouldn't have given you that note, she whispered. He's going to make my life hell. Thomas shook his head gently. No, Ellie, he's not. Martha studied him, suspicious but curious. Who are you, mister? He smiled faintly. Just someone who cares about how people are treated. She frowned. That's a rare kind of someone these days. He looked back at the glowing diner sign, flickering in the dark. Maybe not for long. He pulled out his phone, typed 2 words. Proceed now. Then he looked up, eyes reflecting the red neon letters that spelled Miller's. Inside, Gary was pacing, unaware that his time had just run out. A car pulled up moments later. Black sedan, no logo. The kind of car that didn't belong outside a small-town diner. Ellie looked uneasy. Who are they? Thomas smiled, soft but certain. Friends. You'll see. The passenger door opened. A woman in a blazer stepped out, holding a clipboard and badge. Mr. Reed, she said quietly. We're ready when you are. Ellie blinked. Mr. Reed. Thomas looked at her, the disguise finally thinning. He nodded once. Thomas Reed, CEO of Miller Steakhouses. Her jaw fell open. Inside the diner, through the glass, Gary saw the car, saw the people in suits, and for the first time that night, his face lost all color. Thomas turned to Ellie. Do you trust me? She hesitated. I want to. Then stay, he said. Don't quit. Not yet. You're about to see what truth looks like. He stepped back toward the door, calm, composed, as the wind picked up around him. Let's go back inside. The diner lights flickered as Thomas pushed open the door again. The bell above it jingled, the same tired sound it had made 1,000 times before. But this time, it meant something else. Judgment had walked in. Gary looked up from behind the counter, half laughing, half snarling. You again? Didn't I tell you to get out? Thomas didn't answer. He stepped aside, letting the 2 figures in suits follow behind him. One woman with a clipboard, one man with tablet. Both wore the quiet authority of people who didn't need to prove they were in charge. The entire diner froze. Even the friar's hum seemed to lower in deference. Martha whispered to Ellie, Oh, sweet mercy. Thomas stopped near the center of the room. He removed his navy cap slowly, setting it on the counter. Under the harsh light, the disguise fell away. His composed face, his clear blue eyes, his calm like still water before a storm. Gary's smirk faltered. What's going on? The woman in the blazer spoke first. Gary Miller. He blinked. Yeah, that's me. She showed her ID. Corporate Compliance and Labor Ethics, Miller's Group. Gary's mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. Thomas finally spoke, voice even, but carrying a weight that pressed on every corner of the room. I've been sitting in this restaurant for 2 hours, Gary, watching, listening, reading notes your employees were too afraid to write. Gary swallowed hard. I don't know what this is, but this, Thomas interrupted quietly, is accountability. He turned to Ellie, who stood by the door, trembling but watching. You said he wouldn't let people quit, that he took money from paychecks for training costs, that he shouted at you in front of customers. Gary stammered. That's a lie. They're lazy. Thomas's voice dropped, not louder, just sharper. Do not insult him again. Silence. Even the men in suits at the far booth put down their forks. Thomas nodded toward the officials. Show him. The man with the tablet stepped forward, tapping the screen. We've been monitoring payroll inconsistencies in this branch for months. 43 unlawful deductions, 2 unpaid medical leaves, 1 staff member fired without cause. He looked up at Gary. All under your management. Gary's face went pale. I was just following orders from Regional. Thomas raised an eyebrow. Regional doesn't order you to steal wages. The woman added, We already confirmed. No directive like that was ever issued. Martha crossed her arms, her voice steady but trembling with emotion. Told you this would catch up with you. Gary. Gary's composure cracked. Come on, this is crazy. You can't just barge in here and... Thomas held up a hand. The room quieted instantly. He stepped closer, not menacingly, but with the calm of someone who's seen too much pain to tolerate excuses anymore. I built this company 20 years ago, Thomas said softly. Started in a one-room diner with 3 people who believed that food meant dignity. We served truckers, teachers, and tired single parents. People who worked too hard for too little. And I swore no one who worked for me would ever feel small. He looked straight at Gary. But here you are, making people small. Gary stammered. You can't fire me. I've been here 15 years. Thomas shook his head slightly. You weren't here. You were using this place. There's a difference. He turned toward the officials. Effective immediately, Gary Miller is suspended pending investigation for wage theft, harassment, and misconduct. Remove his access to payroll and lock the system. The man nodded, tapping commands on his tablet. Gary's voice rose, cracking. You can't do this. You don't know what it's like trying to run a store with lazy staff, no funding, and corporate breathing down my neck. Thomas stared at him, eyes steady. You're right. I don't know what it's like to blame everyone but myself. For the first time, Gary had nothing left to say. Ellie stood frozen, tears threatening again. This time not from fear, but disbelief. Thomas turned to her gently. Ellie, how long have you worked here? Almost 2 years, sir, she said quietly. But I never thought I'd last this long. You did, he said, because you cared, even when no one cared back. He looked around the diner, the peeling paint, the buzzing light, the silence heavy with guilt and hope. Martha, he said softly, you've been here the longest, haven't you? She nodded, since before Gary, back when this place still had laughter. Thomas gave a small, sad smile. Let's bring that back. Gary tried one last time, desperation replacing arrogance. You think you're some kind of hero? You come in here for one night and act like you understand. Thomas cut him off with a calm finality. I understand enough. I understand that leadership isn't about power. It's about protection. He stepped closer, voice quiet but immovable. And you forgot that. The officials moved toward Gary. Sir, we need you to leave the premises. Gary's jaw clenched. This isn't over. Thomas met his eyes. For you, it is. Gary stormed out, the door slamming behind him like a chapter closing. The room stayed silent. Then, slowly, Martha exhaled. Lord, I never thought I'd see the day. Ellie's voice shook. So, I didn't mean to cause trouble. Thomas turned to her, gentle again. You didn't cause trouble. You told the truth. He looked around the diner. And the truth is how everything begins to heal. He reached for the folded note on the counter, the same one that had started it all. He placed it flat on the table, smoothing the creases. I'm keeping this, he said quietly, as a reminder of what silence costs. Then, to the officials, ordered the entire branch, every location under Gary's supervision. And tomorrow, bring in new management, someone who listens before they lead. The woman nodded. Understood. Outside, the wind picked up, carrying the scent of rain, of renewal. Thomas looked out the window. The neon sign flickered again. Miller's, a name that used to stand for something. He turned to Martha and Ellie. Tomorrow, this place starts over. And for the first time all night, they believed him. The rain began as a whisper against the glass, faint, rhythmic, cleansing. Inside, the diner stood frozen in a strange stillness. No one spoke. No one moved. Even the neon sign outside seemed to hold its breath. Thomas stood at the counter, cap off, truth out. The quiet power of recognition spread like slow thunder through the room. Ellie still couldn't find her voice. Her trembling hand clutched the hem of her apron. Martha just stared at him, tears forming quietly, not from sadness, but from release. After years of enduring, someone had finally seen. The woman in the blazer approached Thomas again. Mr. Reed, the audit team is in position. Regional managers are online, waiting for your statement. He nodded once. Good. Let's make it quick. They've waited long enough. She turned on her tablet, broadcasting his image to a split screen of shocked executives across multiple cities, faces that suddenly looked a lot less certain. Thomas's tone remained steady. This is Thomas Reed, founder and CEO of Miller Steakhouses. Tonight, I visited one of our locations without prior notice. What I witnessed was a complete betrayal of everything this brand was built on. A few murmurs echoed from the tablet speakers, corporate discomfort trying to disguise itself as concern. He continued, firm but measured. Our values aren't just slogans or billboards. They are promises to the people who cook our meals, clean our floors, and wear our name on their uniforms. If a single manager can turn this place into a prison of fear, then we failed at leadership, and I take that personally. The call went silent. Not one executive dared interrupt. Thomas turned slightly, gesturing toward Ellie and Martha. These two, they represent what's right about this company. They show up, they care, and they endure. From this day forward, I'm creating Compassion Grant, an internal fund to support workers facing financial or emotional hardship. Every dollar will come directly from our executive bonuses. Martha's hand flew to her mouth. Sir, you don't have to. He smiled gently. I do. Ellie blinked back tears. Why? You don't even know us. I don't need to, Thomas said softly. Your people. That's enough. The woman with a clipboard handed him a folder. Sir, we finished the background check. Multiple violations confirmed. Local authorities are en route to secure financial records. Thomas nodded, then looked around the room, at the cracked booze, the flickering lights, the years of fatigue soaked into every inch of this place. This restaurant will close for 72 hours, he said. Not as punishment, as a reset. Everyone who worked under Gary's intimidation stays on payroll during the shutdown. When we reopen, you will have new management, better wages, and a reason to smile again. Martha's voice quivered. You mean that? Thomas smiled faintly. I don't say what I don't mean. He turned to Ellie. And you'll get a letter of commendation. For courage. Her breath caught. I almost didn't give you that note. He looked at her, eyes kind but deep. Then this place might have stayed broken forever. One small act of bravery can start a revolution. A police car's lights flashed outside, blue and red reflections sliding across the diner's walls. Two officers entered quietly, respectfully. Mr. Miller, one asked. Thomas nodded toward the back. Office. His gathering paperwork. You'll find what you need. They disappeared through the door. The customers who had stayed, mostly silent witnesses to the night's unraveling, sat wide-eyed, some embarrassed, some humbled. One man muttered, Guess karma still works after all. Thomas looked around one last time. The same booth where he'd sat now looked different, not because of what had changed in it, but because of what had been exposed. Sometimes, truth didn't fix what was broken right away. Sometimes it was as simple as turning on the light. He put his cap back on. As he turned to leave, Ellie called after him. Mr. Reed. He stopped, half-turned. What happens now? She asked softly. Thomas smiled, calm, tired, resolute. Now, he said, now the hard part begins. The part where we make sure this never happens again. The door closed behind him. Outside, the rain had turned to a steady pour, washing the dirt off the street, off the sign, off the story that had just rewritten itself. And somewhere deep in the night, justice finally exhaled. Morning came with gray light and the smell of rain-soaked asphalt. The neon sign outside Miller's Steakhouse still flickered, but this time it felt different, like an apology blinking itself awake. By sunrise, the story had already spread. Local news vans lined the parking lot. Reporters leaned into microphones, their voices cutting through the drizzle. Breaking overnight, the CEO of Miller's Steakhouse had conducted a surprise visit to one of his own branches, uncovering wage theft, harassment, and illegal labor practices. Inside, the diner looked quieter, cleaner, and strangely lighter, as if the walls themselves had let out a long, tired breath. Gary Miller didn't show up for his scheduled disciplinary hearing. He was found later that day in his apartment, packing boxes. His resignation email arrived at 7:12 a.m., 3 sentences long and utterly hollow. Effective immediately, I resign. It was all blown out of proportion. Thomas never responded. There are some apologies that silence answers best. The officials moved swiftly. 3 other locations under Gary's supervision were audited. By noon, Investigators confirmed systemic payroll abuse, overtime denied, shifts cut without notice, fake training deductions across dozens of checks. Every employee affected was reimbursed within 48 hours, plus back pay, plus apology letters signed by the CEO himself. No PR spin, no press statement written by lawyers, just accountability, the rarest kind. For Ellie, the week felt unreal. She came in Monday morning expecting to be jobless. Instead, she found a sign taped to the door, temporarily closed for renewal, not for punishment. She pushed the door open to find Thomas already there, sleeves rolled up, helping a small crew repaint the walls. He wasn't giving orders. He was sanding the counter himself, quiet and focused. When he noticed her, he smiled. "Morning, Ellie. Ready to rebuild." She laughed nervously. "You're really doing this yourself?" He shrugged. "It's my mess. I clean it up." By afternoon, new inspectors arrived with fresh uniforms, safety protocols, and higher wage policies. A poster went up behind the counter. "Respect is not optional. Kindness is company policy." Martha stood beneath it, hands on her hips, reading it twice as if to make sure it was real. "I waited 20 years to see those words on this wall," she said softly. Thomas smiled. "Then let's make sure they stay there." Later that week, a memo circulated across all Miller's branches. It wasn't written by marketing or PR. It was written by Thomas himself. It read, "If you manage people, you protect them. If you feed people, you respect them. Profit means nothing if we lose our humanity in owning it. We can fix our food. We can fix our buildings. But we can't fix a broken heart that we cause." The public's response was overwhelming. Customers began returning, not for the discounts, but for the story. A story of correction, courage, and conscience. Across social media, the hashtag #NoTapMillers trended for days. Thousands of workers shared their own stories. The quiet mistreatment, the silent endurance, the small kindnesses that saved them. Somewhere in that flood of digital noise, one truth kept resurfacing. Kindness doesn't need a reminder. It speaks before excuses do. Gary's story, meanwhile, faded. He faced legal action for wage theft and falsified reports. The company pursued restitution, not revenge. As Thomas told his legal team, justice isn't about punishment, it's about prevention. When asked by a reporter if he regretted going undercover, Thomas simply said, "Regret's easy, repair takes work." The following month, Thomas held a private meeting with regional managers. No boardroom, no suits, just an empty restaurant and paper cups of black coffee. He told them what he'd learned that night. "That girl," he said, "risked everything to write 7 words on a piece of paper. That's what courage looks like. Not power, not position, just truth, in ink." He let that settle before continuing. If you ever find yourself in charge of people, remember, you're responsible for the weather in their lives. You can be the storm, or you can be the roof. No one forgot that line. As for Ellie, the note writer, she became a quiet legend. When the diner reopened, she returned in a clean uniform with a new title stitched into her name tag, Shift Supervisor. The first time she held the keys to open the restaurant, she whispered to herself, "Not afraid anymore." Martha laughed when she caught her. "You earned it, baby." Ellie smiled back. "No, we did." One evening, a month later, Thomas stopped by again. No cameras, no suits, just him. The place was full, families, workers, laughter, music from the jukebox that actually sounded alive. He sat at his old booth, ordered the same thing. Steak, medium, water. Ellie brought it to him herself. "Hope it's better than last time," she teased, with a grin that replaced a tremor in her voice. He cut a bite. "Perfect. Much better," he said. "And the service?" She smirked. 5 stars, sir. But don't write that down. It'll go to my head." They both laughed. Martha called out from behind the counter, "We're out of burnt coffee. Boss, you want the fresh pot or the story kind?" "Always the story kind," Thomas replied. The laughter rippled through the diner like light. Outside, dusk fell slowly. The neon sign glowed steadily now. No flicker, No buzz. Just warm, honest light. And beneath it, the reflection of a place reborn. Not perfect, but trying. A place where fear had once lived and dignity now did. Spring came quietly that year. The air smelled less like grease and more like something growing. At Miller's Steakhouse, the windows were open, the tables polished, and laughter had become part of the decor. The same building that once echoed with tension now hummed with life, proof that change, when honest, could echo louder than shame. Thomas sat by the window, a cup of black coffee in hand, watching customers drift in. His undercover visit had become corporate legend, whispered in training sessions, retold in break rooms. But to him, it wasn't a stunt. It was a mirror. He'd seen who they were, who he had been, and who they could still become. Across the room, Ellie was training 2 new hires. Her voice was calm, her patience endless. "No one's just a waitress," she told them. "We're the heartbeat of this place. Treat people like stories, not orders." The recruits nodded, smiling, and she added with a grin, "And if your manager ever disrespects you, you know where to find me." It wasn't bravado. It was assurance, the kind born from surviving truth. Martha, now the regional quality supervisor, walked in with her clipboard and her no-nonsense smile. She'd swapped her old diner shoes for newer ones, but her stride still carried that same mix of grace and grit. "Table 3 needs napkins," she said, then winked. "But don't make me say it twice. I've got a reputation to maintain." Ellie laughed. "Bossing people around suits you." "After 25 years," Martha said, "I think I've earned it." Thomas joined them at the counter, watching as staff moved easily, no fear in their shoulders anymore. "You've built something special here," he said quietly. Ellie turned, her smile soft but steady. "You gave us the tools. We just used them." He nodded. "No, you reminded me." She looked down, still shy at praise. It was just a note. "Notes start revolutions," Thomas replied. Later that week, the company hosted its first Miller's Annual Kindness Awards. Employees from all branches gathered in the renovated flagship restaurant. The air buzzed with nerves and pride. Cooks in fresh uniforms, servers standing taller than usual, managers smiling without scripts. Thomas took the stage without fanfare, his sleeves rolled up just like the first night Ellie saw him. He began with a story, not about profits, but about people, about the courage it takes to tell the truth when silence feels safer. Then, he called Ellie up. She froze at first, hands trembling, eyes wide, as applause filled the room. Martha nudged her gently. "Go on, sweetheart. That stage belongs to you." When Ellie reached the microphone, Thomas handed her a small plaque. It read, "For reminding us that compassion is the strongest currency." Ellie's note award for workplace kindness. Her eyes welled up, but her voice didn't shake. "I didn't mean to start anything," she said. "I just didn't want to see good people treated badly anymore. But if one note can change a company, imagine what kindness every day could do." The room fell silent, then erupted into applause that felt endless, the sound of healing made audible. After the ceremony, Thomas found her outside under the soft glow of the new sign. "Thank you," she said, "for believing us." He shook his head. "You believed first. I just followed." They stood there a moment, watching the reflection of neon light ripple in a puddle on the pavement. "I was wrong about one thing," Thomas added. "When I came here, I thought I'd fix a restaurant. Turns out, the restaurant fixed me." Ellie smiled through quiet tears. "Then I guess we're even." That night, as the last guests left and chairs were stacked, Martha flipped the sign to closed. The diner was dark, peaceful, and honest. In the window, the reflection showed 3 people, a waitress, a boss, and a survivor of too many hard nights, standing side by side. No hierarchy, no fear, just shared purpose. The note that started it all was now framed above the counter. 7 words that changed everything. "He's not who you think he is." And below it, in smaller print, Thomas's addition, "And neither was I." The lights dimmed over Miller's Steakhouse, now quiet except for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the rain tapping against the glass. Thomas sat alone at the counter, the same seat where it all began. He ran his fingers along the edge of the framed note. The ink slightly faded now, but the message still alive. He spoke softly, as if to no one, or maybe to everyone. Money can build walls. Oh, it can open doors. But kindness builds bridges you can walk for a lifetime. He glanced out the window, Ellie helping a young worker close her umbrella, laughing. Martha waved goodnight. We spend our lives building companies, he whispered, but the real work is building people. He stood, left a tip on the counter, too generous to be casual, too humble to be prideful. As he stepped into the rain, his voice carried one last reflection. When you see wrong, do you stay quiet, or do you stand up? The door closed softly behind him. The neon sign flickered once, then glowed steady, open, not for business, but for change.